Stand by, 30 seconds to the opening of this El Tour de Tucson bike race. 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take.
It was in 1983 that the El Tour de Tucson was born. Back then, it was a simple joyride for a handful of bicycling enthusiasts. Over the years, it has grown into one of the premier cycling events in the country, attracting well over 3,000 riders from across the United States. The El Tour is a challenging course, covering 111 miles. Some take it on for the thrill of competition and the honor that goes with winning first place. Others do it as a simple show of courage to prove that handicaps can be overcome. Handicaps resulting from arthritis to blindness. From the athletes who beat the clock to those who beat the odds. We'll introduce them to you as the Arthritis Foundation presents the 1989 University Physicians El Tour de Tucson. Bicycling in pursuit of a cure. It's shortly before 7 a.m. on a cool, brisk November morning in the desert. The riders have gathered for the start of the race. Some have been here since 4 o'clock, trying to get a good spot. Finally, the race begins.
4, 3, 2, 1.
In all, over 3,000 cyclists will attempt to cover the entire 111-mile course, a course that circles the city. It starts at the Sheraton El Conquistador Resort and heads west across Tangerine Road. It then turns left and goes south, where it will go past the first river crossing, then through some hilly and mountainous areas along Silver Bell and Sweetwater roads. After continuing south, the riders then will head east through the southern part of Tucson, which stretches running along Interstate 10. Then the course heads north and back into the mountains. It is usually in this area of the race where the leaders will distinguish themselves from the rest of the pack. Finally, the race makes a complete circle and finishes where it started, at the Sheraton El Conquistador. Early in the race, the leaders are bunched together and will remain that way for quite a while. Among that lead pack, Kent Bostic, the El Tour's defending two-time champion.
I'm going to try and stay with the leaders, and I'm not going to make any bold solo moves before probably 3/4 of the way through the race. If I'm in a small group, I'll work with a small group for the latter half of the race to establish our lead, and then if I can get away solo, fine. If I'm not fit enough, then I'll probably just have to sprint against the whoever I'm with.
Bostic's words would become prophetic. Aside from keeping track of the leaders, something else to look out for early in the race is how well the inexperienced riders maneuver through heavy traffic. Here, hundreds of cyclists are jammed together along Tangerine Road. Unfortunately, the inevitable happens, a wreck. This one involves a small group of riders, one of which will require attention at the medical tent.
Oh, that stings. Ooh.
There are no serious injuries for this rider. Aside from assorted cuts, scrapes, and bruises, perhaps what is most painful for him is the disappointment of having to drop out of the race so soon.
Yes, I've been training for the last 2.5 months.
Is this your last time in this race?
No.
All right.
Next time I can get that guy. No, I'm not. No, this is not my last time in this race. I'm coming back.
Along with congestion, confusion is something else the riders have to deal with. In a race this size, it's confusion over just where to turn. Fortunately, all the riders involved in this mess eventually made it back on course. About 40 minutes into the race, the leaders reached the first river crossing, a bridge that calls on the riders to pick up their bikes and walk across. They do so to the music of the Titan Valley Warheads. Among those still a part of the lead pack is a rider named George Yates, a victim of arthritis whose mere presence in this race is remarkable in itself. It's early in the morning and George Yates is taking his dog for a walk. Nothing spectacular about that, unless you consider that in 1984, George became so violently ill he couldn't even get out of bed, let alone go for a stroll with his spirited sidekick Mackie. At the age of 29, George was suffering from genetic rheumatoid arthritis.
Part of the hell is not knowing what is happening to you. After going to the hospital, having weeks of testing done, not being able to move, losing 45 pounds of weight in just a 2-3 week period, there's a lot of uncertainty what was happening to me. The doctors could not tell me anything concrete.
After some tests, doctors finally diagnosed the problem and began treatment. Miraculously, within a year and a half, George was healthy enough to return to competition. Prior to the illness, he was a world-class triathlete.
I enjoy competition. I enjoy the feeling of being fit. I take a lot of pride in myself, and I think this is what's going to keep me going for the rest of my life.
George works out near his home along the beach in Southern California. His routine includes running 6 to 8 miles and biking 40 to 50 miles a day. Workouts that aren't quite as easy as they used to be.
It is a lot harder now. I have to be a lot more consistent in my lifestyle. I can't overdo my workouts. I have to be very, very intelligent about pushing myself to a safe limit, so I do not injure myself and cause a lot of pain and stress on my joints. Otherwise, my condition just reverts back to where I become very, very stiff and I lock up.
Although he's extremely fit and looks healthy, George does not train without experiencing some pain.
Different degrees of pain. So it's just like having good days and bad days. Some days I'll feel very, very good. Other days it'll be marginal. I'll have to just deal with the pain and gear my workout accordingly.
George knows his arthritis is something that'll be with him for the rest of his life, but he doesn't worry about that or whether his condition will get worse. He just takes it day by day.
I don't sit around and think, oh, poor me, I have arthritis and things are not going to be good. No, I totally do as much as I can because you never know what's going to happen the next day. I try to live each day for its maximum potential.
An inspirational George Yates. He and the rest of the lead pack are now about a fourth of the way into the race, and this signals the beginning of the 75-mile start. While not as difficult as riding the entire 111-mile course, covering the full 75 miles to the finish line is nevertheless a long way to travel. Up ahead, some other riders are traveling through the second river crossing. Unlike the first, where the riders used a bridge to get across, this time the cyclists have to tough it out over some rough terrain. Some make it with little difficulty. Others don't. While this stretch is obviously quite demanding, for some it's also extremely frustrating.
I don't even know where this dumb thing goes.
Meanwhile, the leaders have advanced to the southern part of the course, mostly flat land and straightaways. Not far behind is a group of riders trying desperately to catch up.
How far ahead are they?
Probably too far to catch. But while these riders struggle to stay close to the lead, another struggle away from this race continues every day. The struggle to beat arthritis. It's the battle cry of this event, bicycling in pursuit of a cure. With more on the fight being waged against this crippling disease, here's Terry Quinn.
The National Arthritis Foundation estimates in the 1990s, 40 million Americans in the United States will contract one of the over 100 diseases of arthritis. Clinics inside the Tucson Medical Center provide treatment for both adults and children.
hey, it's coming. The next cast will get that easy.
Dr. Paul Alepa is a staff physician of this children's clinic and is aware of the commonly wrong assumption that arthritis is just one in the string of complaints of getting old.
A lot of the joint complaints of degenerative joint disease, which we were aware of in our grandparents, were always called grandma's rheumatism. And it's that reason why people overall have the idea that all arthritis was grandma's rheumatism. And of course it is not. Some of it is quite severe, quite devastating. And most of the population, I think, is unaware of that.
7-year-old James Heiserman has had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis since age 2. He's a regular at this clinic, and today he's being fitted for a splint that will help to straighten his wrist. Besides the obvious physical results of arthritis, there are often hidden emotional side effects.
If he's hurting or in pain, that we have to take time out for him, and it's so hard on the rest of the children. It's so hard for them to understand the pain and what's going on with James. You know, it's been a long time that this has been going on at home, but with James, but it's still very hard for them to comprehend, to understand, and to have the patience for him.
There's no known cure for arthritis. However, research may one day solve this dilemma.
In a recent presentation made by the Director of Research out of our national office, he made the statement that he believes within 25 years that research being conducted by the Arthritis Foundation could possibly find a prevention for arthritis. And if that be the case, then from that point forth, we would worry about taking care of people who have arthritis now and begin a new generation of people who won't get the disease from that point.
In addition to providing funds for national research, the local chapter of the Arthritis Foundation provides other services.
We conduct a lot of programs and services locally to help those positively affect the lives of those who have arthritis now. Those programs and services include land and pool exercise programs, support groups, self-help classes, public education, awareness days, professional education opportunities for the doctors in the community, as well as publicity types of activities that will enable people at large to realize that arthritis is a disease that affects all people of all ages.
In the end, it comes down to each individual coping with their disease. And sometimes in weakness, there is strength.
I never give up. So I keep on trying. After 1 minute, I finish with it.
It's now past the halfway point in the race. Preparations are underway for the start of the 50-mile ride. Included in this group is world-renowned University of Arizona heart surgeon Jack Copeland. A former patient of his, Gary Clark, will be waiting for him at the finish with this message.
I'll probably say, hey, Chief, congratulations. Now maybe you and I can go out and ride together.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
As the riders at the 50-mile start take off, up ahead preparing for the start of the 25-mile ride is perhaps the El Tour's most inspirational participant, Singrid Walden. She's riding this race in tandem with her partner. Why as a tandem? Singrid Walden is blind. But while that disability makes her different from the other riders, she does have one thing in common with most of them. By the end of the day, she too will have crossed the finish line. Although not all have passed through this territory and survived, the leaders are now about 3/4 of the way through the race. As the riders now head back into the hills, one cyclist has made his move, Mike Gleason of Tucson. Gleason has broken from the pack, a calculated risk, as there is still over 40 miles to go. Gleason is going all out to pull away for good. Will he do it? Right now, he is all alone. Being alone in this situation is the last thing that any rider wants. This person is experiencing equipment problems. More specifically, the dreaded flat tire. Luckily, she has a partner who's willing to stick with her and lend moral support, even though she may be a bit embarrassed to do so.
It's not my flat, though. I'd like to go on record. It's her flat.
A flat tire for any of the leaders would prove to be a fatal blow at this point because there's only about 25 miles to go. And since the last time we saw him, Gleason has been caught by the pack. A pack that includes defending champ Kent Bostic and a group of riders from Tucson wearing green and white shirts. They will work as a team, drafting off each other, trying to gang up on Bostic and pull out the victory. As that group heads towards the finish line, the next group of riders prepares to get rolling from the 25-mile mark. Included in this bunch is a group called Kids for Kids. These youngsters are each riding to raise money for other youngsters who have been stricken with arthritis. Among these riders is a young boy whose mind will not be only on this course, but on his little baby sister back home. Reaching the top of this monstrous hill is a struggle for 8-year-old Matthew Bertrand. But the uphill climb he faces here is nothing compared to the one facing his younger sister, Sarah.
Are you a happy girl?
At the tender age of 5, Sarah is another victim of rheumatoid arthritis, a disease she's been fighting since she was just 17 months old.
Well, it affects all her joints, well, almost all of them. And usually at Halloween, she flares and she can't go trick-or-treating. And she just like, in the mornings she hurts real bad and she needs to have her temperature taken and usually she has a fever.
Our first response was arthritis. That's an older person's disease, and we didn't even know children could get arthritis. So we were really surprised, and the more we've learned, the more we know it's a really, for children, it's a really nasty disease. It just invades their entire life and lifestyle.
I'm forcing you.
Oh, good. Thanks.
That's nice out here.
Yeah, it is. I'm impressed.
Still, Sarah and her family managed to lead a somewhat normal life, enjoying a home out in the country. The Bertrands spend a lot of time together, doing things typical families do. But whatever the activity, if Sarah is there, you can be sure Matthew is close behind. The two share a very special brother-sister relationship.
It's really, really good most of the time. I mean, then we have the normal sibling battles and stuff, but mostly they get along real well, and Matthew's usually real careful, real nice, real caring.
Aside from dealing with Sarah's arthritis on a daily basis, perhaps the hardest part for the Bertrand family is having to deal with a disease that offers such an uncertain future.
It could burn itself out tomorrow, or she could have it the rest of her life. She's just now getting to figure out that she got the short end of the stick here. And she's not real happy about it, about that. But overall, she's a happy kid.
A happy kid who, with a little help and support, might just turn the corner on arthritis and become a healthy kid as well. Matthew Bertrand, one of the El Tour's Kids for Kids, bicycling in pursuit of a cure. As mentioned earlier, in a race of this distance, usually it's on the steep hills where the riders either begin to fade or pull away. This year's El Tour is no exception. From this group, two cyclists go to the attack, Bostic and Tucsonan Jimmy Riccatello. The others try to stay close, but to no avail. After pedaling for nearly 100 miles, the race has come down to these two. They will go head-to-head for the final stretch run to decide the winner of this year's El Tour de Tucson. But nobody can win the El Tour or even finish it without making it through this portion of the race, the third and final river crossing, and the most rugged of all. After completing a stretch as difficult as that one, the riders now are met by some welcome faces, those belonging to the folks working at the aid stations. They offer words of encouragement.
6 miles from here, you're done. 6 more, 6 more. That's it. Just 6. Just 6.
They also offer a helping hand to people whose bodies have just about given out.
My husband's an iron worker. He likes rub-downs.
Hey, all right.
Although soothing, rub-downs are a luxury afforded only by those riding in the race for pleasure, not for competition. No, those trying to finish first must always keep on the go and never stop. Such is the case with Jimmy Riccatello and Kent Bostic. There are now just a couple of miles remaining. Riccatello and Bostic are still virtually dead even. What the defending champ had predicted might happen will. A final sprint to the finish line will decide the winner. The winner for the third straight year, Kent Bostic. His time, 4 hours, 41 minutes, and 50 seconds. 1 second ahead of Riccatello.
I'm elated. I'm very happy. My time was a little faster the other year, and that was probably because the race was less tactical last year than it was this year. And so that's why my time was about 5 or 10 minutes faster in another year. But I mean, records are great, but in a mass start race, it's hard to set a record because you have to go keep that little reserve there for the sprint at the end.
We had him outnumbered, you know, and it was 4 against 1 at one point. He's good. So, but I'm happy. I mean, I of course wanted to beat him, but he was too strong.
As for the women, the winner is Tucson and Nancy Ship. She beats the rest of the women easily, crossing the finish line only 9 minutes behind the men.
I've never raced 100 miles before, so I feel good about that. I was kind of wondering how it was going to feel. I only trained 200 miles a week, so I was a little bit nervous about how I was going to do.
While most of the riders are like Ship, nervous before the race, many others are like this gentleman after the race, exhausted.
Come here, congratulations. Are you all right? Let me help you out here.
Another weary traveler crossing the finish line is Dr. Copeland, there to greet him, as he said he would, his patient and good friend, Gary Clark.
Congratulations, just pull it up. I'm proud of you, man, that's great. It's really right. It's
Quite a ride, huh?
It's a long 50 miles, isn't it?
It's a long 50 miles.
You did it. You did it.
Many of the riders, like Copeland, worn out by the race, find relief in the form of a muscle-relaxing massage.
Oh, it feels great. I feel like going to sleep right here.
This will limber up the joints, gets the muscles a little more flexible, moves the lactic acid out of the muscle tissue. So when you're ready to go training tomorrow,
That's easy for you to say.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi there. Where are you hurting?
Where am I not hurting?
Okay, back.
Lower back, sore legs.
Start face down.
Oh, great. Wake me up.
Some of the riders end up waiting a good hour and a half before getting treatment. But that wait proves to be well worth it, as the thousands of people who entered and finally conquered the L Tour begin to wind down from a long, hard day, a day they will likely remember for the rest of their lives. With the sun about to set on the 7th annual L Tour de Tucson, it brings to a close yet another memorable event. We won't soon forget the amazing duel between three-time champion Ken Bostic and Tucsonan Jim Riccatello, or the tremendous courage displayed by so many athletes who were determined to be a part of this extraordinary cycling event. And although the time difference between the rider who finished first and the one who finished last is major, they do share one common goal, and that is to help win the battle against arthritis. Bicycling in pursuit of a cure. That's the University Physicians' L Tour de Tucson. Our 7th annual event has come to a close. I'm Vince Cotroneo. Thanks for watching.
Stand by 1 minute to the end of this El Toro de Tucson bike race. .45. .30 seconds to the end of this bike race. .15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take.